Greetings, YouTube! The Doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Pathfinder Second Edition. And today I wanted to go over a build that I've been working on for a little while. This is a Exemplar build. So we're going to talk about the Exemplar. The theme for this build and this Exemplar is a Protector tank build. So this is not for damage. But like I said, we are going to go over some basics about the Exemplar, and then we're going to go over this particular build that I have. I have this character made at 2nd level and at 13th level. So we got a lot to go over, a lot to talk about. Stay tuned and don't go anywhere. All right, before we begin, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a question or a comment. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. Don't forget to share this video. And most importantly, if you have any business inquiries, make sure to check out the email address that is in the description of the YouTube page. All right, so I've got this up here, but we want to start out by going over just some basics of what is an Exemplar. So an Exemplar is a martial class with key attributes, as you can see here, of strength and dexterity. They've got pretty high hit points, 10 plus their constitution modifier. Now they are not trained in all armor, but they are trained in all weapons. So and the build that we're going to be making is going to be a human build. So it is a martial class that has some very particular attributes and very particular things that it can do, and they're all tied to these items or weapons that they have called icons. So initially they are trained in perception, so that is something we will have to deal with at some point. They are experts in will and fortitude. That's good. And they are trained in religion. So they're kind of religious. If you want to think about an Exemplar as, say, Perseus from the Clash of the Titans movies, like the original Perseus or the Perseus from the other two movies that were done, that is the kind of character we're talking about. But you can see here that they are trained in simple, martial, and unarmed attacks. So simple weapons, martial weapons, and unarmed attacks, but they are only trained in light and medium armor. And they're trained in unarmored defense, of course, and then they're trained in their Exemplar DC. So the big thing about these characters is they have this thing called the Divine Spark, and they have these icons. They start with 3 icons. So it says 3 icons. This is kind of like their spells, or it's their shtick. It's kind of like a spell. So you pick 3 of the icons, and then you can shift your Divine Spark into one of these icons. You can only have it in one at a time, and it is an action to put it there. But once it's there until you decide to shift it someplace else, or until you use what's called the Transcendence ability. So every icon has like a passive ability that is always on, and then there is an action that you can use with an icon that has the spark inside of it, and it will cause the transcendent power to kick off. And then once that happens, the spark will then flip over to another one of your icons. So if we go here to key terms, it says right here, imminence and transcendence. And if you read here, to use your action, your Divine Spark must be empowering that icon, and you must have the icon ready to use. Immediately after you spark Transcendence, that is, you use the power within the icon, your Divine Spark is forcefully ejected from that icon, coming to rest in another icon of your choice. You can only spark Transcendence once a round. So for instance, if you were holding a weapon that had your spark in it, and you use the transcendent ability of the weapon, you could then cause the spark to come out. And let's say you had a icon that was a shield, then you could put the spark into your shield and trigger that particular icon. So let's take a look really quick at some of these icons. And here they are. So we go all the way to page 43 of the War of Immortals. We've got things like Band of Imprisonment, which is used as a worn item, anklets, bracers, or circlets. We've got Barrow's Edge. This is one of these melee weapon ones. Now, the melee weapon ones are very specific. They each associate with a class of weapons, so they're not usable by every kind of weapon, and this is going to dictate what kind of weapon icon you should have. And it's almost mandatory that you get a weapon icon. You don't have to have one, but it really helps. And, we've got Gleaming Blade, another weapon icon. As you can see here, it's good with knives and swords. We've got Hands of the Wildling, which is usable with a freehand weapon or melee unarmed strike. We've got Eye-Catching Spot, which goes on your face. We've got Gaze Sharp as Steel, which is imbued in your eyes. Horn of Plenty, which is basically goes into a bag. We've got the Mirrored Aegis. This is one of my favorite ones, and this is usable on a shield. We're going to be using this one. We've got a Worn Cloak or Belt called the Pelt of the Beast. The Mortal Harvest, which as you can see is a sickle or any weapon from the axe, flail, or pole arm group. So you won't be using this one with a sword or anything like that. So there are a lot of different icons, but essentially you get 3, and then you get your spark and you get your transcendent ability. You put the spark in one of your 3 icons, and then once you use that transcendent ability, so you can see here there's an imminence, that's that passive ability, and then there's a transcendent spark, which is, for this one, it's called Reap the Field. It's an action, and you use it, this thing happens, then that spark jumps to one of your other icons. So you can, the whole action economy and rotation for the Exemplar is trying to figure out how to get your icon to constantly be rotating around all of your different items. Okay, so just another quick thing that is here is, in addition to all of that, there's a bunch of abilities on the ability table that the Exemplar gets. And one of the big ones is they get these epithets. They get them at 3rd level, and then I believe at 7th level. So they call the root epithet. And then at 7th level, they get the Dominion epithet. And then at, I believe, 11th or 13th, at 9th level, they get Divine. Oh, here it is. Here it is, right here. 15th level, they get the Sovereignty epithet. So these are things that can layer on top of your icons and your sparks. So for instance, at 3rd level, you get this root epithet, which consists of the brave, the cunning, the deft, the proud, the mournful, or the radiant. And so the radiant says, leaders must live bigger lives than any other shining troops, yada, yada, yada. You are trained in diplomacy. This is kind of a theme with these. After you spark transcendence, you use that power. You inspire an ally within 30 feet of you to push on, restoring hit points equal to 2 plus double your level. This is a mental and emotional effect. Then they are immune to it for 10 minutes. So that's pretty good. We're going to talk about that one a little bit too. But that is one of the ones that, when you use the transcendent ability, you still get the transcendent ability for the icon. Plus, if you've now got this root epithet, something else will happen. So those are kind of the basics of the Exemplar itself. So let's get into the build itself. All right, so we're going to start out, we're going to talk about how we built this character up. And remember, the theme of this character is the Protector tank. So I wanted pretty high AC. Now remember, we can't use heavy armor. We can. There are ways to get around that. You could get heavy armor, but this character is never going to be fully trained in heavy armor. They eventually will get expert in medium and light armor. So we want to kind of stick with medium or light armor, but you can really kind of trick out your AC even with medium or light armor. And then health is another one, but when I say health, I don't necessarily mean a lot of hit points. What I really mean is either a lot of hit points or a way for us, if we are going to get hit because we're going to be up front, to be able to take those hits and then be able to heal that damage. So those are two things that we're going with. So we're going with human, and the reason I'm going with human is I wanted to get arcane tattoos. And particularly, I wanted to get the shield spell. Now, I'm going to be using an actual shield itself, but the shield spell doesn't require you to have any hands. The bonus that I'm going to get from the shield spell to my AC is not going to matter, but it will block an attack. It will block an attack, which is really important because every time we block an attack in a combat, that is some health that we ourselves are not going to be taking, which feeds into the tankiness of this. So we're going to be a human, and we do start with a 25-foot speed and some hit points. We are going to be Verizian because that allows us to take the arcane tattoo. And we take versatile human as a general feat. Now remember, I said that the exemplar is only trained in perception, which means we're going to take canny acumen and we're going to choose perception, so now we become an expert at perception. And the reason we want to do that is because perception is really important for initiative. I want this character to be able to go as soon in initiative as they can because we want to be able to get up into somebody's face and we want to start defending. And we kind of want to take the hits right away to allow everybody else to do their thing. So we're choosing human, we're getting arcane tattoo, and with the arcane tattoo, we are going to be taking the shield spell. So here we have the shield spell here. I have unlimited usage for this because it is a cantrip. Right now it is a first level, and it is going to allow us to get this magical shield that we can use the shield block reaction for if we have a reaction. That's one of the big problems with this character. And exemplars in general is there's a lot of action economy that they really have to pay attention to. They are action starved, both in reactions and regular actions. So we are going to be having to really look at this carefully. But this shield has a hardness of 5, so it's going to take 5 hit points and then it'll be gone. And we won't be able to use it again for that combat, but that is 5 hit points that we no longer have to worry about taking. So that is all the reason for that. And we're going to get some better spells because we're going to take more of the arcane tattoos as we go up in level when we get these. So for our background, we are taking an uncommon background. Now this character is going to be a character that can be played in Pathfinder Society rules. I have a ton of boon points, so we can easily afford this one. We're going to be taking the Time Traveler, which gives us a boost to our dex or intelligence plus a freebie. Of course, we want dex because we want to get as much dex as we can for our armor bonus, and reflex saves and a few other things. It gives us 3 lore skills, which is awesome, and we'll go over those when we go over skills. And we get this bend time ability. So once per day for free, we can just go bam, and we get an extra action. We're quickened, which means an extra action. So there's quicken. We get an additional action. And we can use that action to stride. So we took canny acumen, so we can get a high initiative. And then right off the bat, in a combat, because we can only use this once per day, in a combat, we are going to stride as quickly as we can forward. So, so there is the ancestry and the background. So the class obviously is going to be exemplar. This is a 2nd level exemplar. We are going to be taking our 3 different icons. So here they are. We've got Barrow's Edge, Mirrored Aegis, and Scar of the Survivor. So mainly this is our weapon, and this one feeds into that theme that I was talking about, where we are going to be kind of this tank. So Barrow's Edge deals 1 additional spirit damage per weapon damage die to a creature it strikes. So this is the Imminence ability. That's that passive ability that's always on. This is typically the weapon icons will do 2 per strike in spirit damage per damage die. So this one is a little less. However, if the creature is below half its maximum hit points, the weapon deals 3 additional spirit damage per damage die instead of 1. So that actually is above the average for all of these. And a good thing about that is you will know when the creature is below half its health. And it rattles and all of that. So it rattles more strongly when an enemy is below half its maximum health. So you kind of be able to tell. The Transcendent ability, so we're going to have to move to get up to it. We're going to have to use an action to strike it, and then we're going to have to use an action. I wanted to take one that has an action. A lot of the weapon icons that have 2 action transcendent abilities, there's a strike as part of the actual transcendent ability. So that in itself works out. But we chose one that has a 1 action transcendent ability called Drink of My Foe. So we're going to move, we're going to strike, and then we're going to use our transcendent ability. There's our 3 actions right there. Your last action was a successful strike. So the only problem with this one is if we miss, we don't get to use this. And then the spark is stuck inside our weapon, because you have to use the transcendent ability for it to jump out and to rotate. But it's stuck inside our weapon now, and we have broken our rotation. So we really don't want to do that. So we're gonna roll the hit. We're gonna hit, and then we're gonna use the transcendent ability, Drink of My Foes. And the effect is your blade glows as it absorbs a foe's vitality. You regain hit points equal to half the damage dealt. So, and that damage is going to add up a lot. And then we pull the spark out, and it is going to jump to another item. And what item do we want it to jump to? Well, the next thing on our list is our Mirrored Aegis. So it is going to jump to our shield. And then the Imminence ability is immediately going to turn on. So the Mirrored Aegis emits an aura of 15 feet emanation that protects you and allies in the aura, granting a +1 status bonus to AC. So now all of a sudden our AC goes up by 1. And if the Mirrored Aegis houses your Divine Spark for 10 interrupted minutes, it will restore it to full hit points. So if we end up using the shield block part of the shield, which an Exemplar has shield block, they don't have the reactive shield, but they do have to spend an action to raise their shield, which we don't have, but I have a way around that. So, but we're going to get this +1. Then we can use the Transcendent ability when we have an action. You raise the mirrored shield, so we automatically raise it, which summons ethereal shields that surround you and one ally of your choice within 15 feet in a tortoise shield formation. You and your ally get +1 status bonus to AC reflex saves and any saves against Force, Spirit, Vitality, or Void effects for 1 minute. 1 minute. So that's why this is awesome. So on that second turn, so first turn, we move up, we strike, we use the Transcendent ability of our weapon to Drink of Our Foes. We get some hit points back. The spark jumps over into our shield. And then on our next turn, we use our first action to raise the shield. And then that +1 AC goes right into effect immediately for a minute. So at this point, we don't really need to put the spark back into the Aegis itself, because we're going to be getting that bonus for a minute. And so we can use that action now to raise our shield. Okay, then we can have it go back into our weapon. We can hit with our weapon. we can transcend the spark to heal, and we can have it go into our scar of the survivor. So once it goes in there, we get die hard, which means it's harder for us to die. And then we get a +1 status bonus to fortitude saving throws, which is okay. You don't really always need that. However, on our next turn, as our first action, we can hit the transcendence, which is going to cause our spark to move. We can put it in the weapon. And then your wounds knit shut with hardly a scratch. You gain 1d8 hit points. And at 3rd level and every 2 levels thereafter, it increases by a d8. So we're 2nd level now. When we go to 3rd level, it'll be 2d8 healing. So now we get healing from the sword, and we get healing from the scar. Now it's back in the sword. Second action that turn is to hit, and then the third action is to use the transcendent ability of the sword. And then the spark we can get now, because we've got the 1 minute of the Age of Shield, we can put the spark back into our scar. And then we just have this feedback loop where we're healing ourselves. It's not a super ton amount of healing, but it is healing nonetheless. Now, those are our 3 icons that we have. And they are going to kind of feed into that defender, that I got, I don't have a lot of health. I have a fair amount of health, but I am constantly healing myself. And that is going to protect some of the others in your party, because if you got clerics or other healers, they can concentrate on healing other people other than you. So now I want to talk about these epithets that we can take. This is the 13th level version of this character, who has 2 of the epithets. He's got the root and the dominion epithet. Doesn't quite have the sovereign epithet yet. That comes at 15th level. So the 2 that I chose, there's kind of a choice that you can make with the theme of this character. I have here the proud on here, but we could also choose the radiant. So let's take a look at the proud and what the root epithet, the proud, does. So whether out of overconfidence, desire to protect your comrades, or unshakable thirst for glory, you invite challenges to strike you down. So we're trained in intimidation, and we want to be trained in intimidation because we are going to be using intimidation. And like I said, this is a feat. It's a feat-starved character. It is an action-starved character. So we don't have a whole lot of actions to use, but one of the actions that we might want to use is to use intimidation against a foe. Now, after you spark transcendence, so this is where that comes in. So whenever we spark transcendence, we get to do this thing. After we spark transcendence, you can boast to one enemy within 30 feet to draw its attention. The effect has the auditory, emotion, mental, and linguistic traits until the start of your next turn. The target has a -1 status penalty to attack rolls, damage rolls, and skill checks against creatures other than you. But, and it should be a but there and not an and, it gains a +1 status bonus to these rolls when targeting you. So that's where that shield spell comes into effect, because we want to be able to really kind of take some of that damage. We're probably going to get hit because they have a +1 bonus to hit, but it's going to move that opponent to us, and it's going to keep them at going on us and not going after or attacking somebody else. Now, one of the other choices that we could make here is the Radiant. And this is kind of a party healer. So we get training in diplomacy, and that kind of doesn't go along with what I want to do with intimidation. But we would get training in diplomacy, and after you spark transcendence, so that's any time, you inspire an ally within 30 feet to push on, restoring hit points equal to 2 plus double your level. Once they get hit with this, they're immune to it for 10 minutes. So you can kind of rotate around all of your allies and be healing them with this. Now, eventually you may run out of this. So that's the only downside to this one, is once you do it on somebody, you can't do it again for 10 minutes. However, outside of combat, remember, this is essentially an infinite amount of healing, limited by it can be done every 10 minutes. So that is the other one that I would think about using. The other three don't really fit with this build very well. Then we also have the Peerless Under Heaven Dominion epithet. We could also be taking a Verse Unbroken, but we'll talk about that. So this is the one we get at 7th level. And this one, it says, when you critically succeed on a strike, Divine Skill at Arms guides your weapon, granting you the crit specialization effect for the weapon group. So we're probably going to be using a sword. So we would be using that. It's okay. This is not the best. If you already have access to the critical specialization for this weapon, your weapon gains an additional crit specialization effect of the Grievous rune, which is pretty nice rune. So when you attack with this weapon is a critical hit and gains the critical specialization effect, you gain an additional benefit depending on the weapon's group. And like for a sword, that's going to be the target is off guard, which is something we want. That is something we want. Then when you spark Transcendence, so whenever we do it, your Impeccable Battle form strikes Fear. This is a big one. An enemy of your choice within 30 feet must succeed at a will save against your DC or be frightened 1. That's really, because that's -1 to everything, so we want to stack these minuses on our opponents so they can't hit us. The creature is then temporarily immune for 10 minutes. And we've got a way at a higher level of keeping that particular fear on them. And as you can see up here, our class DC is a 32. Okay, so we've talked about the icons we're going to use, which are right here: the Barrow's Edge, the Mirrored Aegis, the Scar of the Survivor. The epithets we're going to choose are the Proud and Peerless Under Heaven. So let's go back to the 2nd level character here who doesn't have any of these. Now, one of the ways that I'm going to get around some of the limits to actions on this character, particularly the action that we need to be able to use to bring our shield up, because we need our shield up all the time. At 2nd level, we're going to take Bastion Dedication. At 1st level, for a class feature or feat, we're going to take Energized Spark. The feats for this class are not great. The class feats are not fantastic. So that's why I'm going to go with a dedication feat almost right away. So the Energized feat that we get at 1st level, so the energy of your spirit manifests as crackling lightning, chill of winter, la la la. Choose one of the following traits: air, cold, earth, electricity, fire, metal, poison, sonic, vitality, void, or what, but these are permanent. You choose one, and then for any spirit damage dealt by your exemplar abilities, instead you can substitute this trait. And I believe that we chose fire instead. So so there is that. There's a lot of creatures that that will take extra damage from fire. At 2nd level, we chose the Bastion Dedication. And the big reason I chose that is because we get reactive shield. So as the fighter feat, you just need to have shield block, and we have shield block from all of our features that we have as an exemplar. So that reactive shield allows us to use a reaction to snap our shield into place, just as you would take a blow, avoiding the hit at the last second. So you immediately raise shield, and we gain the shield's AC bonus. The circumstance bonus from the shield applies to your AC when you're determining the outcome of the triggering attack. Unfortunately, if we use this, that means we can't shield block, because shield block is also a reaction. However, that's going to change later on. So that allows us to not have to use an action to bring our shield up. So we can concentrate on our rotation of all of our different icon abilities. So for our attributes, of course, so we got 4 at 1st level, we got 2 from Ancestry, 2 from Background, and then we've got our class. So we chose Strength for the class, and then we're going to put a boost in strength at first level for the ancestry and the background. We want to get to a +3 to dex because of the armor we're going to be wearing. So we're going to do 1 at first level, 1 from our ancestry, 1 from our background. We're going to do wisdom and charisma because we are going to be choosing intimidation later on. So we're going to need some charisma for that. Wisdom, I just like wisdom for will and for a few other skills that we're going to be taking as well. So let's talk a little bit about the skills. So here is our skill list. We are going to be trained in art lore. Remember, we got 3 lores for time traveler. So art lore, demon lore, engineering lore. We are going to be training in athletics, acrobatics, nature, and religion because we have to. So, and that's pretty standard at this point. This is not a skill-heavy character, and we haven't gone the intimidation route yet because we haven't gotten that root epitaph. For our feats, we are taking the general feat, Canny Acumen, because that's what we got for being a versatile human, and we're going to be taking trick magic item through nature. Remember, I said that we had training in nature, and this is going to be for a wand of Tailwind, so that we can cast Tailwind on ourselves to get extra speed. So right now our speed is a 25. It's not super fast. Let's see if I can see it here. 25. Our speed is 25 right there. It's not super fast, but we do get the time traveler ability, which will allow us to stride basically twice and start our rotation with all of our icons. Now for weapons, we are going to be using a Leomano, which is kind of this funky looking shark tooth sword. It is in the club group, and it is versatile for slashing and bludgeoning. But because it does slashing damage, we are able to use it with our Barrow's Edge, which is weapons that deal slashing or piercing. So those will work because it's versatile for slashing. We can choose it to do that if we need to. And if we go down here, if you look up versatile, this weapon can be used to deal different type of damage than its listed type. The trait includes the alternate damage type. For instance, piercing weapon with the versatile S can deal piercing or slashing damage. You choose the damage type each time you attack. So that allows us to use Barrow's Edge. It has got a fatal die, which I love the fatal dice, of a D10. So that is going to be our main weapon, and right now it's a +1. The armor that we are going to be using is a kilted breastplate, which comes out of War of the Immortals, and it allows us to have a +2 AC bonus with a dex cap of +3. So that's why we chose a high dex, and it is flexible, which will allow us to get rid of the penalty to acrobatics or athletics. And then we'll also have a steel shield. So currently, if we go to play, our AC is going to be a 21 with the steel shield raised. Now, the shield spell does and does not stack with the shield itself. So if we go down here to shield, trick magic item, spell shield, here it is right here. You raise a magical shield of force. This counts as using the raise a shield action, giving you a +1 circumstance bonus to AC. Now our steel shield gives us a circumstance bonus, so those don't stack. So the +2 from the shield that we actually have will count. But as long as we can get this one up, so its duration is until the start of your next turn, we may be able to get it up and then use a reaction to do a shield block, and it'll get rid of 5 points of damage, and then it's gone. It's kind of a one and done. Again, we are pretty starved for actions, so that one is going to be a hard one to do, but there is a particular spell that I want later on through the tattoos that we're going to take a look at right now. So Here is the 13th level version of this character. And as you can see, we're going to take natural skill, which becomes trained in 2 more skills. We get ornate tattoo, which allows us to get a 1st level arcane spell. And we get the Virtue Forge tattoo, which allows us to get a 3rd level spell. And here's the spells we're taking. We're taking Shattering Gem, which we can cast once per day. And Shattering Gem, which lasts for a minute, allows us to put this gem around us that floats. It has 5 hit points. Each time a creature strikes us, the target attempts a flat check. On a success, the gem blocks. So the attack first damages the gem and then applies any remaining damage to me, the target. If the gem is reduced to 0, it shatters and it does some damage. So it's just something that's going to give us a little bit of damage resistance. And then the big one that I really want is Warding Aggression, and it lasts up to a minute. So we put it up, and then we make a melee strike. So we can use this as part of a strike. So we make a melee strike with a weapon or an armed attack against a foe. In addition to the normal effects of the strike, it has the following below. So Warding Aggression ends if the foe you attack dies, or at the end of any turn in which you didn't hit that foe with a melee strike. So if we hit them, we get a +2 status bonus to AC. That's a big deal for, about 10 rounds. If we crit hit them, we get a +3 bonus against the foe for 1 round and a +2 bonus against them for the remaining of the duration. And if we miss, we still get a +1 status bonus. Now that stacks with just about everything else that we've got. So that is one of the reasons why I took the tattoos, so that we could get that spell off. Because we can only do it once a day, but it is a little bit of an extra. Now, so that is that. That is, we took the versatile human. We've got the arcane tattoos. We've got a couple of more skills. For background, that really doesn't, that doesn't come into effect. For classes, so we've still got the same icons. We've got the Proud and the Peerless Under Heaven, which we've gone through. And then here are all of our feats. We've got the Bastion Dedication. We took Battle Hymn to the Lost. We can do some damage. So you make a strike, regardless of whether the strike succeeds. Then there's these spirits that come by. We can do a 30-foot cone. It does some extra damage. Anybody that's against enemies only, and anybody else that's in there is going to get a little bit of healing if they're dying. So this is kind of a last-minute panic button. We get quick shield block. We're taking that because this goes with our Bastion. So you can bring your shield into place with hardly a thought. At the start of each of your turns, you gain an additional reaction that you can only use to shield block. So that gives us some action economy with our reactions. We're taking Reactive Strike because we absolutely want to make sure anybody that's going to move away from us is going to pay for it. We're getting Through the Needle's Eye. So this is it's a special transcendent ability that's part of our weapon. So if we use the transcendent ability, we can do this one instead. So you aim your weapon in a superficial cut above your eye. You make a strike. So this is one of these 2 actions where it does have a strike with it. With the imbued icon, if it's successful, the target must make a Fortitude save, which is DC 32, or they're blinded for a round, or until they interact basically to clear the blood out of their eye. And then our spark is going to jump, and it'll start our rotation. So that works with our rotation. I thought that one was pretty good. We got Vow of Mortal Defiance. So this is a lower level one. We had to kind of take this. This is just, if we ever come up against something where we need to do holy or unholy damage, then we can use this. Essentially, you swear a vow to defeat one creature within 60 feet that has the holy or unholy trait. The first time each round that you deal damage to it, you deal an additional d6 spirit damage. That's it. Basically, it's just a little bit of extra damage. Like I said, the feats for the exemplars are not great. And then we took Warped by Rage, which is a 12th level feat. And it is imbued into a body or worn icon. So that's our scar. And we are under the effects of a 4th level enlarge. So when that spark goes into our scar, we immediately get big. We get huge because it's a 4th level enlarge. So that allows us to do some extra damage, essentially, and it increases our reach. It's not fantastic, but it is there. And then when we transcend, we get Spasm of the Berserker. So we can choose to heal, or we can choose to do Spasm of the Berserker, and we get the 6th rank Moon Frenzy, which allows us, it gives us some temporary hit points, it gives us a status bonus to our speed, but we do get a weakness to silver. And we grow fangs, and it's just a little bit of a bump. I mean, the big one out of all of these is the quick shield block and the reactive strike. The rest of them are just kind of extra things that are there. As far as the Exemplar's features go, we do end up getting weapon expertise at 5th level. We get the Dominion Epithet at 7th level. Our spirit damage goes up at 7th level. Successes on will saves or crits instead. For Unassailable Soul, Divine Premonition, we become an expert in Reflex. Godly Expertise, so become an expert in our Exemplar DC. We did take Canny Acumen. At 11th level, we did get Perception Expertise. Maybe we want to do some retraining, get out of that. 13th level, we get Burnished Armor Expertise, so we become an expert in light and medium armors. At 13th level, we become a master in simple weapons and simple martial weapons and unarmed strikes. Now, this does not give us access to the crit specialization. It just makes us a master. So that is unfortunate. That is really unfortunate. And then at 13th level, we have Greater Unsaleable Soul. So crit fails are just fails instead on will saves. So we've got a lot of will, and we're able to really overcome that. We've already gone over our spells. For attributes, of course, we're moving up to a 15 or a +5 on strength. We don't need any more dex, so we're going to leave that at +3. We're adding some to con to give us some more health and some more fort. We want our wisdom as high as we can get it and our charisma as high as we can get it because of one of our epithets, we are now trained in intimidation. And there it is right there from Exemplar. And we're going to become a master in intimidation. And one of the reasons we want to do that is because we want to be able to demoralize. And we want to frighten. Frighten 1, because of a particular item we've got, we can lock that in. And, the rest, again, not the best at all of these skills. He's got some skills. We've got nature, and we'll go over why we have nature for some of our items. And then for feats, we're going to get Fleet. So that's +5 to speed. We're going to take Incredible Initiative because we want to go first. We already had Trick Magic item. We're going to take Battle Cry. So when we roll initiative, we can demoralize an enemy as a free action. So we use Intimidate, we pick a foe, and we demoralize them. That is fantastic. So we don't have to worry about that action it's going to take. We're taking Hefty Hauler because I want to get my encumbrance up. We're taking Intimidating Glare. So our Intimidations is now a visual effect. We're taking Intimidating Prowess. So we get a bump to our Intimidation. And we get a +1 circumstance to intimidation checks, and you ignore the penalty for not sharing language. If your strength modifier is +5, we get a +2, which it is. So we get a +2. We get Terrified Retreat. So when you critically succeed at a demoralize action, if the target's level is lower than yours, the target is fleeing for a round. That's massive. And we get Terrifying Resistance. We took that. So spells of those, the spells of those you have demoralized are effective on you. If you succeed in demoralizing a creature for the next 24 hours, you gain a +1 circumstance bonus to saving throws. So we are going to demoralize because of Battle Cry right off the bat. We're going to run in because now we've got a 45-foot movement. I believe that is right there, 45-foot movement, because we've got an item with Trick Magic that is going to bump our speed up. A couple items, actually. And we're going to battle cry, we're going to move in, we're going to use our weapon, we're going to hit with our weapon, and then we're going to use the ability to suck some hit points off and then transcend the spark to our shield. Now, what's our weapon at this point? At this point, it is a +2 brilliant, greater striking, serrating Leomano. And the brilliant is going to give us a d4 in fire damage. We're doing 6 spirit damage right now because we've got a greater striking ruin on it for 3d6. That is actually going to go way up. It's going to go up to 3, so that'll go up to 9. And then we do an extra d4 spirit versus fiends or d4 vitality versus undead because it's brilliant. The serrating part of it, which is right down here, no, the serrating, we got to go, let's go back into here. The serrating part of it, which is under our, there it is. The serrating part of it is also uncommon. And we can activate that. It does an additional d4 damage. So there's another d4 damage that actually isn't in there right now. And then it lists some other things. So that's the weapon we're going to be using. On average, when we use Barrow's Edge, we're going to be healing for about 13, 14 points of damage. With the Scar, we're doing 7d8 right now, and we're going to be healing for about 31 points of damage. So we can heal for about 45 points of damage every single round if everything works out fine. For armor, we're going to have a +2 resilient, moderate, dread, Spellwatch, kilted breastplate. So there's the kilted breastplate, which is going to have flexible. And then the runes that we're going to have on it are going to be armor potency +2, resilient, dread, which again is uncommon. However, so frightened enemies within 30 feet that can see you must attempt a DC 29 will save at the end of their turn. On a failure, the value of their frightened condition doesn't decrease below 2 that turn, which means we can lock in our frightened. Remember, we did battle cry at the beginning of the turn, and then we lock that frightened in. And it is adamantine, which means it has a whole bunch of hit points and a whole bunch of hardness. So if we go down here, it has a hardness of 15 and 120 hit points. So if we block with this, 15 points of that damage is coming off, which is awesome. That is just awesome. Now for magical items, we're getting the Pale Lavender Aeon Stone. This one's kind of hard to find in here. It's right down here. And if we get targeted by a spell, it'll cast a 6th level Dispel Magic, and we'll try and get rid of that. That's kind of a panic button. I got Bracers of Armor 1 just to kind of have them there. They're not really going to do anything for us. Demon Mask Greater is a big deal. That gives us a bonus of +2 to our intimidation checks. It can also be used to cast Fear, which maybe we'll use it, maybe we won't. Propulsion Boots, that's a big plus. We need those for the extra item bonus. To speed +5. So between fleet and the boots, that moves our 25 speed to a 35 speed. And then we've got Tailwind, which allows us to boost that by another 10, which gives us the 45. Plus we got Quickening Stomp with the boots. So once per day, stomp 3 times, and we gain the Quicken condition for 1 minute, which we can use to stride, climb, or swim. That is a big, big deal. Scar of the Survivor is our icon. Tactician's Helmet. This is just a little extra. We get +2 status bonus acrobatic checks and athletic checks, protect, rearm, charge. We can stride twice if we've got charges in this. And this is a big one right here, Wand of the Tailwind, because we have nature, and Tailwind is a, where is it here? Tailwind is a arcane or primal effect. We can use nature as our ability to be able to cast Wand of the Tailwind, and we should be able to cast that every single time. So we use it, we get Tailwind on ourselves. Tailwind lasts for quite a while. So Tailwind, it's a first level spell, and Tailwind will last for an hour. If we could cast it at second level, it would last for 8 hours. So that is pretty much the character in play. As you can see here, we're starting with an armor class of 38. And this is going to be with the maddening on it, or the warding spell that is going off. So that's with our warding aggression on. If we were to turn that off, I think I've got these down here. If we turn that off, then our armor class goes to a 36. We've always got Tailwind on. This doesn't, if we turn shield on or off, it really doesn't do anything. The shattering gem doesn't really do anything. But the Aegis does help us out quite a bit. So that is another thing that we can do if we've got our mirrored Aegis going. So we've got a really good armor class. 38 armor class is a really good armor class. We've got this really massive steel shield. We've got a pretty good perception of plus 20. We've got 164 hit points. And we've got all of our icons. So not a big damage dealer. We're going to run up. We're going to do our battle cry. We're going to run up. We're going to strike. We're going to transcend with the barrow. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and flip the spark over into our shield. We're gonna proc off that +1 for a minute from the shield icon. And then we're going to move the spark over to our back over to our weapon, and then over to our scar. And it's basically just going to go back and forth between the scar and the weapon at that point. That could get short-circuited if we ever miss. And then it's going to get locked into our weapon. All right, that is the character. That is the build. Very good build. Great armor class. Big ability to heal themselves at 13th level for about 45 hit points of damage around, which is a substantial amount. We've got some shield block that we can do to get rid of some damage, and a few other tricks up our sleeves. So that is what I have for everybody today. I hope everybody enjoyed, and I will catch everybody later.